You know how you have that thing that happens over and over again that you just keep stumbling on and you feel like it's a curse because your life keeps falling apart when you hit that same wall over and over again? It might not be. It might be you. And we're going to talk about how you take those 7 steps to figure out how to clear your own curse here on Curse Breakers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Curse Breakers. My name is Storm Sestavani. If you like this show, please hit the thumbs up on the little menu option at the bottom. If you don't like the show, you don't have to watch. Just shut it off. If you do like us, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the show. And the show is sponsored, of course, by CoventryCreations.com. Make sure that you check out the website for any goodies that may happen to be going on at any time of the given day, night, or any time in between. I'm here, of course, with the enchantrix of Coventry Creations, my co-host, Jacki Smith. And I just have a question for you, Jacki. What have you been doing for the last 7 years?
7 years is a long time. I've been up to tons and tons of stuff. I wrote a book, The Big Book of Candle Magic. Coventry has launched a new product line. I don't know, with this guy I know. With he does some cool stuff with astrology, maybe, you know. But life has changed. So it might be Storm. It might be Storm that we have the Astro Magic product lines with candles and sprays. But life has been a lot different since we did our last show with Keep It Magic. I don't know. We've gone through a pandemic. We both survived. Thank goodness.
I was born for that pandemic. I was very born for that
pandemic. You got to stay home. and during that time, I don't know, I found my gratitude specifically for you, but on a lot of different things. And it really reminded me how much I missed our time together on Keep It Magic. And we started talking about, would we do a show together again? And so in all this stuff and all the changes that we've gone through.
And my answer, by the way, is always no.
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 And my answer was no, too, because we've been a little bit busy. But life has been, in the past 7 years, it's been a huge roller coaster. I think since then, I know I've lost both of my parents. My daughter has graduated high school. She's graduated college, and she's living in Japan right now. I've moved and bought my dream home, and now I'm, deeply in debt, and I love it. But, and Coventry has grown and moved into different locations, and, new level, new devil. We talk about that a lot for with both of us. And so the past 7 years, what do they say, that your entire body changes every 7 years? And I do feel like a completely different person than I was 7 years ago. Everything is different in my life. Everything.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, look.
I mean, here we see you, which I'm so excited about.
So yeah, it's a lot of changes, but I want to go even back further than 7 years, Jacki. I want to go back to 2010, I believe, when you published Coventry Magic. And I want to talk about the 7 steps, because I think that they're perfect in regards to grounding somebody into, first of all, the now, okay, and getting them to focus on things to help remove the challenges and the obstacles that may be blocking them, that they may feel are outside influences, yet you and I both know outside influences only happen if you allow them to happen. So in most cases, I mean, I'm sure that there are exceptions to the rule, like always. There's exceptions to every rule, but
those are the minority. We can't focus on the outliers and the minorities. So I mean, of the instances. Yeah.
Now in Coventry Magic, you wrote about the 7 steps, okay, which you also at that time, which feels like we were on the Mayflower making candles back then. You know what I mean? And the candles look like they were on the Mayflower. But you wrote Coventry Magic. You wrote about these 7 steps. Okay. First of all, what motivated you to write about them? What spawned this whole 7-step thing because there were pamphlets and booklets and everything at that particular time with these 7 steps in them. And I even burned one and blew up my whole life. Now, thankfully, I'm very grateful for the experience. At the time, I was not.
Well, what does that saying go? To get everything you want, you have to let go of everything you have.
Right,
And
right.
I've experienced that a couple of times in my life. And it is not easy. It's actually quite painful. So there we are. It's yet at the end of it, you're like, oh, phew, my life is so much
And do
better.
you find, Jackie, that people that, for a lack of a better term, blow up their life, okay, by doing magic? For me, it was just, I was simply wanting to make some form of a small improvement in my life, okay? And then I did the 7 steps. I'm not going to say which one, okay? But I did, Jackie knows. I did the 7 steps. Everything in my life fell apart in 1 year, okay? And then gradually over the next 13 years, okay, I'm in the best place that I've ever been. And I have, the best people around me that I've ever had. And life is going very, very well. But do you find that people often do something for a simplistic reason and it turns into something much bigger than they had initially planned?
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say, you're saying 13 years later,
Hmm.
your life is the best it's ever been. But even, your life blew up that year, but the next year you were already in a much better place.
Right,
I
right,
mean, it really was. It was a metamorphosis for you. It was a
right, right.
total evolution for you in that time. And even myself right now, I set up what was it in early March, like the beginning of March, March 1, I did a huge manifestation quest. And I used it was interesting that I tapped into someone else's program.
Hmm.
And what was fascinating is that they were using the 7 steps. They called
Oh.
them something else. So that was I was like, validation, yes. So I just wanted to tune into somebody. I was struggling with my own stuff. And sometimes when you're struggling with your own stuff, it's handy to use someone else's process to get out of your own way.
Hmm.
And what was hilarious to me is I said, okay, I'm going to use someone else's process to get out of my own way. And I was in the middle of using my own process from someone else's mouth.
Right.
Which, so that just to me validated that this is a really valid process. But guess what? My life fell apart because I'm manifesting something I really want and need. It's evolutionary
Hmm.
for me. It's taking me to the next level. And so what happens is you find or you get presented with absolutely everything that is in your way, whether you put it there or it's there because you need to evolve past it, of your own making or other people putting it in front of you because they are not ready for you to evolve. That's a big deal too.
Right.
um, so I feel that rarely are people actively looking to stop you or harm you. It's just that you're outside of their comfort zone. You have pushed them beyond their comfort zone. So your
Right.
growth makes them go, whoa, that's not you. Don't do that. And we see that all the time. I mean, I people have grown where I'm uncomfortable with them and I'm growing where they're uncomfortable with me. And so sometimes then you're not in sync anymore. And so it feels like you're at odds, and maybe you are because your agendas, hidden or otherwise, don't match anymore. And that's okay.
Right.
But how I got to the 7 steps is experience. And when I was writing Coventry Magic, and what something happens to me when I'm writing a book, and that is, so I have my outline and my idea of what I'm going for, and then I have things sketched out, like I want to talk about X, Y, and Z, and it's I knew I wanted to talk about the 7 steps, and I knew that they were. I didn't know I was going to call them the 7 steps. So I was going to talk about them, and then divine providence, intervention, help from the universe, whatever, they put something in my way that validates it and says, this is what this is akin to. This is what is synchronistic, and here's what validates what you're talking about. And for me, I needed some quiet space to go write. And my dear friend Cindy was writing her master's thesis on giving another step to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's Stages of Death and Dying. And but she was in her house, quiet space, and she goes, "Well, come write next to me in the room next to me. So we started talking about this stuff, and she was talking about the stages of death and dying. And I said to her, there's we learn how to die. So here's this stages of death and dying, and she's studying psychology. I said, so where is the stages of living? Where in all of the things that you've studied? Because I did not have an opportunity to go to school and go to college the way I wanted to. And that's exactly what I wanted to study. And she looked at me and she says, there isn't one. There's no philosophy within like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's that says that this is about
Right.
living. There's no stages of evolving and dealing with your problems in a certain way. And I said, well, we need one. We needed a process for living. And so so I said, here's my philosophy on how we create core change in our life is we do this as humans. We do this over and over again. And the reason why I came to that philosophy, these 7 steps or 7 stages, is that I do them, and my clients do them. And I see that with people who buy the candles and all the questions that they would ask me, and all the clients that I would read for and students that I would teach, etc. They would all say the same thing over and over again. They would say, oh, this is where I'm at. And I would say, oh, I know exactly where you're at. And so that's how I came up with these 7 things. It's from the human experience. And they're and it's interesting, and that now that I'm diving more and more into other people's work and going through my own process, and it's going back to these 7 things, everybody's talking about them. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that they read my book and now they're copying off of me. I just think they're very universal. I think
Right.
they validate me. They validate all of us. And so now that I said keep talking about these 7 things, do we want to talk about what they are? And before we get into what they are, Storm, I realized you never told us what you've been doing these past 7 years. Apparently, it's our lucky number today. You just said you're different.
Let's see. Let's see. A lot of transformation. Um, uh, I've studied a lot of different things in the past 7 years. I mean, everybody knows that I'm a nerd and a geek. Okay, so I'm constantly reading psychological stuff. I just got 3 new books in yesterday that I'm real excited to devour. Continuing to study Kabbalah. I uh, created with her this wonderful candle line called Astro
Yeah.
Magic. And what I liked about creating Astro Magic was when Jackie first came to me and said, I think we need to do an astrology line. And I said, "Ugh, I am not going to do zodiac candles. It is not happening. I don't think that they're going to sell. They're just going to sit there. There's no point in it. It alienates 1/11th of the population if
Right.
you divide everybody out into signs. Didn't want to do it. Then I said, but what if we do a line that's based on the planets rather than based on the signs? And we
Mhm.
plotted it out, and we, of course, came up with astromagic, which is planetary magic. We just, needed a clever name for it. So so the candles came out with that. We did a first bougie run of them with these
Beautiful candle.
containers, which I think that you can still get, if you try real hard. And they're limited edition, and then it sold very well, so they moved out of limited edition, and now they're one of the staples of Coventry.
Yep.
And besides that, I write for Coventry. I write for myself. I've been doing, a lot of people don't know this. They may have thought, oh, it was the end of Keep It Magic. Jackie and I have worked together for the last 7 years, regardless, because I've done an Astro Magic column for them for 7 years. Okay, every single month. So which has evolved, and I like the shape that it has changed. I looked the other day at one of the first forecasts that I wrote Jackie, and I said, "Oh my God, how did she even let me send this to her?" Especially the way that it's done now, and it's evolved, and it's all blocked and
Mhm.
pretty, and I'm like, "Oh my God, what? I don't even know what I was thinking." Okay, which is probably what I'm sure that you thought when you started writing the big book of candle magic. What the hell was I even thinking, the
Right.
last time? So that change has happened. Okay. And, what I have to give credit for is that my life transformation. When I burned those candles was in 2010. It's now 2023. 13 is a lucky number. Uh, what started out as an absolute disaster. I'm very grateful for, taking the time to really work through these steps, because through this process, Jackie, what I don't know whether it was conscious or unconscious, I've had to keep, where we said earlier, new level, new devil. I've had to keep working these 7 steps over and over and over and over again as new things came up. And they're, you know, even though we're going to talk about them in this numbered sort of way, the first one is get comfortable in your own skin. One thing that I want to say is that once you have these steps, what you're going to notice, just like in the stages of grief, okay, you're going to go through them in different ways. It's not going to be the same numbered sort of way each time. In many ways, you may actually um, be doing step number 7, okay? And step number 7, because you have reached this level now, okay, has now opened up a brand new step number 1. It's opened up a
Yeah.
new thing, which now you have to get comfortable in your skin again, okay?
Right.
So the first one is get comfortable in your own skin, okay?
Yep.
Now, what does this mean for you, Jackie?
It just is radical acceptance of where you are. When you don't accept who you are and where you are, maybe even love yourself a little bit for it, forgive yourself for where you've been, or give yourself some grace. You've done the best you can with what you've got to get where you are. And it might not be where you want to be. But this is where we give ourselves a bit of grace to say, yep, this is where I am. And also radically accept where you are. Like,
Right,
okay, I have gone through all my savings, and I have, done what I was set out to do. It did not turn out the way I wanted to do it. I did not get the results I wanted to get. Radical acceptance. It's not there. Or radical acceptance that, my marriage is not, and all of these are for instances, they're not real for me. Like, my marriage is not happy. I'm not happy. Radical acceptance. Also giving myself grace. I've really been working on it, trying to be happy and getting there. Radical acceptance and giving yourself grace at the same time. And just saying, I'm here. This is where I am. And get a little comfortable. And I say getting comfortable in your own skin is that like, I talk about my own personal journey a lot, because I want to be careful not to tell other people's stories,
hmm,
um, and keep their confidences. So I just kind of turn it into my story a little bit. But in my on my own journey of, and it's been a long journey of losing weight, and I'm not, of the extra the weight I wanted to lose at that time. And it was the getting comfortable in my own skin was about, yeah, this is who I am. This is, and I need to love myself who I am and give myself grace of, like, yep, I've got this weight on me, and it's not where I want to be, but I'm still a gorgeous human being. Not
right,
not necessarily just physically, but just who I am as a human being. And give myself grace, saying, I got a lot of stuff underneath the surface that keeps triggering me. And so I need to, and radical acceptance, and I need to address them. So
right,
it's all of those things together, getting comfortable in your own skin. Because if you don't do that, and you start, and it's really getting grounded in who you are. And if you start somewhere else, if you only start like way in the future of this future self, but you don't get grounded right now, um, you're lying to yourself. You're not real. Like, that the saying of, act as if you already have it. Well, that's well and good, but they don't give you the first part, which is understand where you are and then act as if you have it. So that means understand you're an overweight person, and then act as someone who is healthy and fit. Well, someone who is healthy and fit isn't sitting in the big green chair with a bag of M&Ms that they're eating while they're watching TV. Act as if, someone who is wealthy is not spending down to their last penny. They're saying, I have put this aside and I put this aside. They're planning. That doesn't mean
right,
they're spending everything. That means they're planning. So there's an interesting thing when you have where you are and where you want to go. when you have this chasm between the two, that tension between the two, if you understand that tension between the two, that's like that energy and the motivation to manifest it within that. You need that space within. So when you say, okay, this is who I am, if you don't get really clear and comfortable in your own skin, that when you set your future goal, you don't have one of the sides of the container that you're creating that you're going to manifest within.
Right. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was going through these 7 steps to prepare for this is that they aligned, and I don't know why I didn't notice this before. Maybe I wasn't ready to notice it before, but they align perfectly with the 7 inner planets.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's well, the number 7 is, an archetypal number on its own, which I
Right.
could go into a whole discourse on it, but won't. The I could, but I won't.
But you won't.
Um, the and getting comfortable in your own skin. One of the things that I do as a life coach when I start working with somebody, Jackie, is the first thing that I want to know. I've cast their chart and everything else, and the first thing that I want to know is how well are they expressing their moon? Because if you see, and I can ask the client a few questions. For example, Jackie, your moon is in Libra. I can say, so, how do you feel about things? And of course, you're going to go into, well, everything needs to be fair and diplomatic. And I don't like a lot of strife or disharmony.
Right.
And I need calm. And I don't like to be thrown off my game and all of these things. And then I will think, okay, they're doing their moon pretty well. Okay, that they've got a hold of what that moon is. Because if you don't get a hold of your moon and you don't express that moon, okay, which is in a vague way, it's kind of like in The Wizard of Oz, your Kansas, okay. The moon is home. You're not ever going to get to that sun, okay. And
Yeah.
which spoiler, it's step 7. The sun is step 7. But yeah, you have to get into that body, and the moon rules the body also, so it's interesting.
Interesting. So step 2 is letting go of limiting beliefs. So once you get
Right,
comfortable in your own skin, and you get some radical acceptance, then you start saying, "Oh, now I start to understand what I believe about me."
right,
You don't connect with those beliefs, or it's hard to unravel or find those beliefs until you get comfortable in your own skin. So when you start
right.
to let find, first you got to find and then let go of those limiting beliefs, and that's a whole process. It's a step, or um a level, shall we say. So I say letting go of limiting beliefs. It's like, now I just let it go, but it's a whole process. uh,
As if it was that easy,
ta-da, I'm done with that belief. But it's finding them, addressing them, looking at them in the light, rather than, because we hide them in our subconscious. There are these little insidious voices of like, you don't deserve that, or that's never going to work out, or that pie is going to make you feel so much better, whatever it is. And there's so many things underneath that. It's those thoughts that you don't even realize that you're having them, or those inner voices. And when you let go of the limiting beliefs, there's a big thing you have to do within it, is you have to replace them. You do have to replace the limiting beliefs with expansive or supportive beliefs.
right.
You can't leave a void.
Well, my theory on voids. Anytime that you have a void, if you don't replace it with something positive, the klippa, which is a
Mhm.
Kabbalistic term for a vessel of negativity, will go in there and fill it up for you. Okay, so you
Yep.
can even let go of one limiting belief. And if you're not comfortable in your own skin, if you have not done step 1, you can let go of one limited belief, and what may fill it is another limiting belief.
Exactly.
So you have to be very careful of that. Astrologically, this is Mercury, okay? And in the
Ah,
chart, understanding where your Mercury sign is, and anybody can get a chart now anywhere. I mean, astro.com is probably the best place. That's where I recommend people go.
It's the
Um,
easiest to
uh,
type in the
yeah,
URL.
and people will remember it, astro.com. And you get a copy of your chart, find out where your Mercury is. Okay. And then you can do any kind of a Google search you want to get my Mercury is personally mine is in Virgo. Okay. So I could type in Mercury in Virgo. And then, all of these sites will come up, which will tell you about Mercury and Virgo. By the way, this was not the way when Jackie and I started this, you know,
No.
almost 40 years ago, okay, when
You
we
had to
started
get the
this
ephemeris
metaphysical
out,
journey.
look up
And you
your
had to get
dates.
a book, and if
Yep,
probably written by somebody in the 60s.
yep.
It was not easy. So life is a lot
You
easier
got a
now.
pie
So
chart,
yeah,
and then you put it all on the pie chart, and then you figured out what your rising, your ascendant was, and then you filled it all in from there. And
you
mine,
filled it
I
all
well,
in.
I ran across mine, the one I did by hand.
Oh my God, you
So,
did?
yeah. Oh, it's all messed up, but I mean, it's just like I put it
Okay.
in the house. I didn't like put it in alignment or anything like that, but it's just like all these are in this house and all these are in that house.
So if like for example, both Jackie and I have Mercury and Virgo. Okay. With Mercury and Virgo, it needs to think things out. It needs to think things in a systematic, structured sort of way. It can't be, and Mercury and Virgo dislikes chaos. Okay. So limiting beliefs for Mercury and Virgo could
Uh-huh.
easily be, if anything chaotic is going on, none of this is going to work out.
Well, it's interesting that just talking about my own current process in the
Mhm.
limiting beliefs, I was clearing these limiting beliefs. And when you say when you have a void, and I was working on creating a new belief, and I actually
Mhm.
set a timer so that it would go off every hour, so I could say, okay, this is the new belief, this is what's going on. But my older beliefs were so strong that they refilled so fast with I don't have support from the people around me, that all kinds of craziness started happening. That boom boom boom, even though I was working really hard on, like, every hour I was restating what my new beliefs were, but I was like, so sometimes you find that limiting belief, and maybe it refilled, or maybe there was another one underneath. So I kind of this is where you ricochet between all of these stages or steps, that I hit something, and then I got ricocheted back into a limiting belief. So it's a layered onion of beliefs, and they
Right.
make you cry.
And that moves us into number three, which is clearing negative beliefs.
Negative patterns.
Negative patterns, yeah, on its own. I'm clearing one off my desk right now.
Well, and that negative patterns come from a lot of times. Well, they don't a lot of times, but negative patterns come from those beliefs. so
Right,
so you are so when you start to clear the let go of the limiting beliefs, and then you find the pattern in your life that says, oh, I did this over and over again. This is what I do to reinforce that belief. But you can let go of the belief and still have the pattern.
right,
For instance, the easiest one is, you might have this limiting belief that deals with food, and then the pattern is when you're home after dinner, and you're going to go keep going and looking in the fridge, or you're just working from home, or it's a weekend and you find yourself looking in the fridge or in the cupboard all the time. That's a pattern. That's
right.
a negative pattern for you. Or maybe the negative pattern is that well, give me a for instance. All of a sudden my mind went blank. What's a negative pattern that you've helped people clear, or you've cleared?
Um, Social phobic disorder.
And what does that look like?
Well, social phobic disorder is a disorder in which you're constantly plagued by perceived thoughts, ideas, perceptions of other people, and how those may influence you.
Hmm.
And when you have social phobic disorder and you go out into a crowd, it can constantly be a cacophony, okay, and an orchestra of other people's thoughts that are going through your head at any given time, real and or imagined, okay. So it is the old term for agoraphobia, okay, and basically, in order to stop that noise, basically what people do is that they begin to isolate and they begin to cut themselves off from the outer world in order to
Yeah.
control those things.
That reminds me of on a lighter level is people who create stories
Hmm.
around when they have like a void of information. They'll fill it with a story that is really about their experience or their worries or their fears. Like
Hmm.
you're at work and someone passed by your desk and accidentally bumped it and they just kept going and you're like, well, that jerk, they purposely messed up my papers and blah 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 blah. In reality, they were so, if you had asked them what the story was, like what's going on, you bumped my desk, they might say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't even wasn't even thinking about that. I was so worried about X, Y, and Z in my life." So
Right,
we create stories, and that reminds me. I mean, that's a story creation going haywire, and that's one of the negative patterns that I help people, and I have to help myself. It's like, oh, this is a story. This is not fact.
right.
Um,
And if enough stories build up, it can turn into a phobia, okay?
mhm.
Uh, Easily. And that there's many different kinds of, social phobic disorder is just one. There's many
Even
different types of phobia.
even this yeah even this morning, for instance, like that whole like one of my negative patterns that I work on clearing, that I'm literally working on clearing right now, is assumptions, which is a story, but also defensiveness. If somebody has a question for me, um or questioning me, or it feels like they're judging me. And so this morning, my husband had a question for me, and I was like, well, my response was like, well, this is what's going on. Ugh. And then later, just like 10 minutes later, went up to him and I said, hey, I got really defensive when you asked me that question instead of being inquisitive. And so
right,
this is me clearing a pattern. So I didn't mean to get defensive. And so my response was really sharp. So I want to flip that. So let's say you ask me that question again. So I'm going to get inquisitive now and say, so tell me more about why were you asking that question? What is this about? Um, I'm going to assume that you weren't judging me. He goes, well, no, I'm not judging you. I just wanted to know X, Y, and Z. I said, okay.
right,
And then we had this great conversation about this. And he his question was like this big or this big. He asked me this much of it. He asked me like the end of it. But there's actually so much more in there. So that was me. That's my negative pattern of like assuming I know what somebody's talking about, or
right,
being very defensive. And that has gotten me in so much trouble lately. And it's really a big part of what I realize I want to manifest, something that's really big. And this is something I found like literally for myself right now that I'm struggling with. So this is, I mean, I do this all the time. These 7 steps are constant.
right, right. They're constant, and the planet that's associated with this is Saturn. Okay, um, uh,
Tell me more
because
about
Saturn. Well, Saturn. First of all, from the magical perspective, getting rid of these patterns. Saturn is a binding spell. Okay, so the best way to bind, one of your self-defeating behaviors is to have Saturn take care of it. Uh, which I'm not even going to say what we named it. um,
Oh,
uh,
yeah. GTFO.
um, yeah. So basically it is about eliminating, GTFO, whatever these happen to be. Okay, whatever these things. Now, and one of the things that I find with the difference between um limiting beliefs and negative patterns, okay, is that negative patterns, there's usually some form of an element of shame that is attached to it, okay.
Interesting.
And the planet that in the horoscope that is where usually where your shame is located is Saturn. Uh, uh,
Huh.
so. So, working through that on that level, and then going to your chart even and looking at where your Saturn is, okay? And, looking at the sign that it's in and what does that sign represent and what are the characteristics of that sign? And how is this being blocked in some form of way? Because Saturn is going to block it because it's going to be afraid of expressing that on an outer level. For example, if you have Saturn in Aries, Saturn in Aries wants to go out and or the sign Aries wants to go out and it wants to do it with force and vigor, okay, and it wants to initiate and it wants to succeed, okay, and then you have Saturn sitting there going, oh, but if you try that, you're going to fail.
Oh.
So Saturn is going to be, the negative angel on your shoulder saying, oh, that's nice and dandy, but is that even realistic? Grow the hell on up. That's so childish. This is what Saturn is saying. On the other side of that, okay, and there's usually a lot of shame that is built up in that. Saturn is also the self-protective. It's our psychic skin in many ways. It's the planet with rings around it, and with it being our psychic skin, it is even though that it is saying, oh, you can't do that, you're probably going to fail. Really what's going on there is, if I go out and do that and take this risk, I may feel humiliated. I may feel these particular feelings. So Saturn creates this particular mechanism in your head in regards to dealing with it. And if you're going through a lot of those issues or you're going through hardships in that area, I always tell people you need to make friends with Saturn. I recently told a friend to make a whole big, huge, gigantic list on things that they need to do on their life and what they're willing to do to take responsibility and duties and take things seriously, okay,
Mhm.
to help bring that Saturn energy in, because once you bring it in, you invite him in. He's also got a lot of really, really good qualities, structure, foundation, security, all kinds of stuff, okay, but you may need to make peace with him in order to get to that particular level. Which brings us to number 4: write your own ticket.
Right. It is. And so it's hard, a lot of people ask me why I don't have step number 4 be step number 2. And
Mhm,
it's because and again, these aren't the steps aren't necessarily done in order. Sometimes you get comfortable in your own skin. You go, okay, well, this is what I want to do. But yet, if you clear let go of limiting beliefs and clear the patterns, what you see in step 4 is so much more vibrant. It's
mhm,
bigger. There's more possibilities. You're thinking almost even more realistically, what could I really do? It's more grounded, because when you do, have you ever done a manifesting exercise? And people who are listening may connect with this. It's like you go to a workshop and it's like a really rah Tony Robbins type thing, and you can be anything you want to be, and you can do this and you can do this and you can be, a millionaire tomorrow kind of thing. um been there, done that with those. And so you're pumped up and you're like, yes, and you write down all these things you're going to manifest, but it's so not based in reality.
mhm,
And then you go home and you're like, you go, oh, I can't do this. None of this is real. What am I even thinking about? Because it's you immediately then hit up on those beliefs. You
mhm,
immediately hit up on those patterns, and then you have nothing. But if you look at the beliefs and you look at the patterns and then you write your own ticket, you can say, okay, what's possible today? What's
right,
possible? What And so now you have your getting comfortable in your own skin, and then you have your writing your own ticket, and you understand where your limitations were within that, and now you have like a vessel to start to manifest in. Because we're manifesting, if we manifest something that's within our grasp, but that's slightly beyond it, then we can really manifest that. But if we're like, if I say I'm going to manifest a date with George Clooney, or
Whew,
lunch with George Clooney, because he's married, and I'm married, but And I don't even know if he's a
I mean,
nice guy.
that's never stopped anybody before. And
Right.
I've got a
I
candle for
I don't
that.
even know if I don't even know if I'm gonna like him. Right. We got
I got a
consent.
candle for that, Jackie. Don't tell me it can't happen.
Whatever.
Don't go to your
Consent.
limiting
It's all about
beliefs.
consent. But anyway, if let's say I wanted to or better yet, I want to meet this one I want to meet who's the guy? Richard Branson. And I want to make a
Mhm.
product for Richard Branson and I want to meet him, right? That's so outside my realm of possibilities because it's not within my spheres of influence. It's got to be within your spheres of influence. It's got to be your spheres of influence is kind of like the Venn diagram of my life is touching your life and your life is touching somebody else's life.
You're
So
4 degrees of separation from Richard
yeah,
Bronson.
yeah. So, but I got to figure out where that is. So, um, if but within my writing my own ticket, it says I want to make product line. I want to make a product line for someone very influential and
Mhm.
co-brand a product line for somebody very influential that will then garner the attention of the next most influential person.
Mhm.
That's within my realm of possibilities. But if I go straight to the moon, it's like I'm going to get so frustrated and so disenchanted and disheartened, I'm going to give it all up. So we do this in steps and stages. I mean, I might want to say my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to make a product line for Branson and Virgin. You know, Virgin Records is now going to have Virgin Candle line co-created with Coventry Creations.
Oh.
You know, hey, put that in the universe, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to say that's what I want. Um, but that's like the BHAG. But we're going to manifest this right now, and so that's why it's like you look at what's within the realm of possibilities, and then slightly outside, so I can stretch a bit to make that happen. Um, and think a little bit bigger. That's where the writing your own ticket part is coming from.
And it's associated with the planet Mars. Mars in traditional planetary magic is a cursing candle. And the reason that it is a cursing candle, it's an inadvertent cursing candle. Really, what you're doing is that you're putting yourself first. And a lot of people, there are a lot of people that are against any form of what I will call aggressive magic. Okay. I'm not against it because if you think about it, Jackie, if you burn a classic get a job candle, okay, and you really want this job, it's been the job that you've wanted your whole entire life,
Hmm.
and you go to somebody like Jackie and find out what it is, and she gives you a candle, okay, probably mine. Shit, the Mars candle is probably what she's going to hand you. um Once you start burning that candle and you're attracting the particular energy towards you getting that job, every other applicant is being banished or pushed to the side. Okay. And that is a form of aggressive magic. And anytime, even I can go into the surreal. Every time that you do a money spell, if you're getting that money, somebody else is not. Okay. So especially if you have it looking in this weird way. So don't judge the magic. Is basically the way that it's doing.
But
Because if you
but I
don't
have a
get
different
any
view
form of
on all that.
Sure. But if,
I have a
for
total.
example,
Yeah.
if you don't do things in regards to yourself, that there's not going to be any form of inner self happiness or any form of sense of achievement,
Hmm.
and that may put you off of the rails entirely. So, did you want to address your
I just think that
idea on that?
there's enough there,
Hmm.
especially on the money thing. That there's enough. If you're getting money, that doesn't mean somebody else is not. Um, I think that there is enough for all of us. Um, and I've seen that happen in many times in my life. I've seen that there is
Hmm.
enough. And then on the job thing, what I've seen is that um, manifesting that job for yourself, like you might be going for ABC company and you like want this
Hmm.
exact job at ABC company and you're lighting that candle, and then when you define what, like the Mars, okay, Mars, I want this perfect job, and you are in agreement with what this perfect job is, and you think it's at ABC company, you might not get that. You might get that at Acme. because that's actually the perfect job. I've seen that switcheroo. So um I just see that the when you're working your magic and you're real specific and you write your ticket real specifically and real no mindfully is really what I
Right.
want to say. Sometimes if you're too specific, I only want that job at ABC company, and then you get it, and then you go, "Oh, I really hate this job at ABC company. It's not what I thought it was," because one of the things we do in that limiting belief is we go, "Okay, this is what I think it is," and we write that script, and we say, "Okay, this is what this is," but it's really that script is something that's just in our head. But when you write your own ticket and you start to get what you want, there's something that happens
Right.
is that everything that's in your way shows up. And
Absolutely.
and sometimes it's things that you have already put in your path. Some things it's things that you've done in your past that are now just coming to their fruition. Sometimes it's the people or things or experiences or things you didn't do. I mean, all that stuff. There's things that are going to block your path, and that's step 5, clearing
Yeah,
your path.
it's step 5. Um which is Jupiter, by the way.
Oh,
Jupiter. When we went to create the Jupiter candle, Jackie had made a candle years ago as a limited edition, which was called the Blockbuster candle. And I loved the candle so much. And when we went to make Jupiter, I wanted, of course, a blockbuster candle. Okay, because Jupiter is the great benefic planet. It's the cosmic Santa Claus, if you want to look at it that way. And any time that he appears strongly in a chart, oftentimes, the ancients believed that good things would happen. And what he usually does is removes, where Saturn is the obstacles and the limitations, Jupiter is the um, contraplanet, which is the expansion. Okay. So it removes obstacles in regards to these circumstances. And, you wrote in here, the first line is step 3. You cleared the negative path of sabotage. Okay. And again, I think that this clear your own path has to do, even though that you did not know, I mean, when you wrote this book, you knew like zero Kabbalah. Okay. So you weren't aware of klippas or anything like that at that particular point. Okay. So, what you were doing when you discussed that is actually stating you have to fill up a negative space with something positive, or in other words, clear your way, fill up these things with something positive in order to move to the next level, basically.
yeah. And clearing your path is it's a lot of times we've put our own roadblocks in place, whether
Hmm.
it's the people that we have in our lives or the beliefs that we the agreements is the word I want to say, the spiritual agreements that we have with them, or um the sometimes it's the bad habits that we had in the past then that created this roadblock. Like it might be that, oh, I never got my act together and went to college, but now I want this really intense well-paying job that I have experience for but not the education, and they want the
Right,
college degree, but I never got it together to get the college degree. Well, that's a block. So
right,
you have to say, okay, well, how do I address that? Either I go get the education and then get the next thing, or I maybe create my own business doing this, or I do you figure something out and say, okay,
right,
this is a block in my path. This is my path, and I have to clear that somehow, some way, and look at things in a different way. Sometimes it's about taking that block and shifting its perspective and saying, how does this serve me? Because every obstacle is also an opportunity. I know that's so very like rah rah, positive thinking, but it's so true because every blessing has a curse, every curse has a blessing, and we're the curse breakers.
right,
So we know all about this. But the reason why I say that, and this is more psychological because it's something that my therapist always tells me. Yes, I have a therapist and I do adore her and I go see her all the time. is that when we um when we agree to a negative situation in our life or continue on with a negative situation in our life, whether it's we stay at a bad job or we stay in a negative relationship or we hang on to friends that are not healthy with us, it's because we get something from it. That negative job might pay really well, or it's a job, or there's might be some security in that relationship, or maybe we're codependent and so we feel superior. I mean, we always get something from it, and that happens on a psychological end, it happens on a spiritual end, because energy is always balanced. So
Right.
this obstacle, if you turn it, it's an opportunity. And I've done this so many times in my 31 years, 30 plus years of having Coventry Creations. I'm in what, my fourth, fifth economic downturn. And if I didn't look at every one of those obstacles as a potential opportunity, I would not have survived this many years. Like, been there,
Right.
done
Right.
that. Now I don't necessarily know exactly what I need to do, but I know I need to shift and do something. Boom.
I enjoy hearing, because I'm privy to a lot of Jackie's conversations because I talk to her a lot. And one of the things that I noticed, that was different between like you and I and other friends that, I have that haven't been in business as long as you and I have, like I said, we started on the Mayflower, cans and, all kinds of stuff. I noticed, and this was about a month ago, Jackie, and you and I were brainstorming and discussing something on the phone. There was something curious that happened. Neither one of us fell into negative thought patterns. We both fell into, we know how to do this and this is what we need to do.
Hmm.
Which is this clearing the path. Okay, this is the new reality. Let me get in my own skin. Let me get rid of any form of negative thought patterns, or any limiting beliefs. Let me remove any form of negative patterns from the past. Okay, write my own ticket. Okay, what do I want to do about this? And then proceeded forward. And it wasn't necessarily fear based. It was, okay, I need to do this, 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 and this. And that's the formula that's always worked in the past. And that's the formula that's going to work again. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to
Right.
go back to thinking in that sort of way. And that opens you up to um, multiply your desire being open to receive.
Right. Right. So 6 is multiply your desire, open to receive, and 7 is actualizing your magic. And I
Right.
like to talk about these simultaneously a little bit because people confuse them and think they're just one step, but they're two. Because the reason why this is, before we can actualize it and say, yay, I'm here, I got it, now on to the next, is you have to be willing to receive it. And there's a reason why I broke these up is I was working with a client and she wanted to bring love into her life. And I said, okay, here's love in your life. Here's the thing. Here's just, let's talk about this. And I was coaching her through this and she was doing the stuff that she's supposed to do magically and personally and everything. And then and she's like, it's not working. And I said, well, tell
Mhm.
me about what's happening. Tell me about like your day and this and that. And then what she was describing is new people were interacting with her. People were showing a ton of interest in her, and she was not responding and reacting to it. Okay, for first of all, in love magic, it's not just about manipulation and saying I got you,
Mhm.
babe, and I got you hooked and you're going to be mine forever. Love magic is about loving yourself first, and then that radiating from you and you becoming very attractive to the people who vibe with that. So
Oh,
she
by
was
the
doing
way,
that.
do not write any stupid comments about that because Jackie and I are not going to read them.
No.
We have a staff that reads our comments. So if you were going to write something with what Jackie just said, don't even bother because we're not going to read it. Go ahead,
So
Jackie.
let me say, successful, sustainable, long-term love magic
Mhm.
is that's my philosophy on that, and that's what I teach people and that's what I help people with. And so as you're radiating it out and then you're attracting the person who is going to vibe with that and radiate that back and return that to you. And so she's getting lots of attention, and I'm like, well, girl, you got to go get that. They're interested. Oh, be open to it.
Right.
You're being flirted with. Flirt back. And she says, well, nobody's asked me out. Well, did you open up to them asking you out, or did you just turn your head and go whatever? You have to be open to it. You have to, and for women it's scary. I know for women
Right.
it's scary to be open to it, but these were not
Oh, it's
scary
scary for
situations.
men now because if you make one movement that may be even
Right.
slightly aggressive, I would
Now,
hate to
granted,
be somebody that's 21 at this point trying to catch him a girl at a bar because he's not going to know by the end of the night whether or not he's going to be spending the night in jail. I mean,
oh yeah. And this is a 20-year-old conversation too, so maybe
right,
this is no longer the best example, but also I've seen it with different people who are like doing prosperity magic, and they're doing all this stuff, and then they're not taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of them.
right,
They're like, well, I'm waiting for this specific opportunity. So, well, you've got all these micro opportunities in front of you to
right.
manifest, to gain money or whatever. They're like, no, I want this thing. I'm like, well, you've got all these other micro opportunities. Go start building this to build your resources to do this thing over here. Um, Anyone in sales knows all about that. Anyway, so you got to be open to receiving it and increasing it and multiplying it, and saying, well, might be different or bigger or better. And that's that future thinking is coming in too, and like, and that writing a little bit more. It's akin to step 4 too, and it's like allowing yourself to see that future and then be the future.
I associate this one with Venus. And the reason I do, Jackie, is that, the traditional idea of Venus in 2023, okay, just because, the way that we morph things, is that she's kind of like this femme fatale. Um, Venus was never a femme fatale. Venus did not go out and find herself a man. Men came to her in every sense of the word, okay? Because she was open to receive. She knew that she was the cat's meow, that bitch, and which is what I named the candle, by the way. Because it serves multifunctions, prosperity, glamour, magic, everything. But
Mhm.
she was also very open to receive. And if you think about the pictures of Venus, like Botticelli, she's so open, she rides in on an open clamshell. I mean, it's all about this reception and wanting to engage with something outside, but she was going to do it on her own terms. Okay, and you do that, by multiplying your desire. Okay, and it wasn't that Venus just desired one thing. Okay, she
Mhm.
desired everybody. She was the biggest hoe in the pantheon. Okay, I'm going just going
I
to be
want you, and I
real.
want you, and I want you, and I want you. Yeah.
I just don't want my ugly ass husband. He can go make me jewelry. The rest of you, I want.
For right now, for this moment.
There's something
You're
that's
not
very
Mr. Right, you're
interesting.
Mr. Right now.
There's something that's very interesting, and this feeds into number 7, which is actualize your magic,
Mhm,
which I associate with the sun, and that there's something that you're going to find very fascinating. In the Iliad, Jackie, when they describe Venus, okay, she is described as having golden skin. And I always took note of that, and I always thought about Venus. Because we can get very, very caught up in uh, trying to put gender identification on everything. Okay, Venus is, and even though that she is a feminine planet, okay, the golden skin has a lot to do with the sun. The sun is gold, okay,
interesting.
so she helps bring in the pathway towards the actualizing your magic. It is through Venus creating relationships with other people, being open to receive. Okay, as you've always said, Jackie, any form of magic that you do takes two. She told me that Coventry Magic Class 101. Okay. It takes two people. And Venus gets you to that point, and I think that helps you to actualize your magic. Now, why did you make this step?
It's time to celebrate.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't celebrate.
Leos love a good party, by the way.
Right. My Leo friend. We got to take a moment and celebrate it, and not just move on to the next thing. So actualizing your magic is allowing yourself to be in that space of saying, yes, I did this. This is my life now. This is what I've done. And it's the difference between, say, like 6 is like putting your order in at the restaurant, at the fine restaurant that you were there, and you've been waiting to get, you waited in line and you waited for your reservation. It took you weeks to get that reservation of this amazing restaurant, and you're there and you put your order in with the server.
Hmm.
That's step 6. Step 7 is it arriving and you eating it. And sometimes we forget to eat it, which is that celebration. Like, in bring this into your life and say, yeah, this is part of my life. This is who I am. Um, it reminded me of like somebody going through a class, or like a meditation class, and never meditating. I know people who learn and learn and learn and learn. Just they take class after class after class. Well, but you actually do the thing.
Hmm.
You actually actualize it and do the thing. And there are lots of people. I didn't say lots of people. There's a few people that are coming to mind right now that take all these classes but never do the thing.
Never do anything
They
ever.
they're just
I
they're
guess they
enamored.
just like to spend money on classes. I mean, that may
Well,
be the thing
and
that they want to do.
they love learning. I'm going to give them
Hmm.
that piece. Um, and then
They don't
so
like
there's
applying.
applying. So there's different students I've had, and I said, okay, so we went through this class, and you did this thing. You learned this thing. Did you do the thing? Well, no, I didn't do the thing. I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong. I'll just do the thing and go ahead and get it wrong. In actualizing, you this is so important, because sometimes
Hmm.
you finally actualize it and you get it wrong. Like, I don't
Right.
want this. This is not what I want. I want something different. And you never know until you say, okay, this is it. This is in my life. So it's moving from dreaming to being. It's the end of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Don't dream it, be
Right.
it. And folks have makeup running down their face, and they're all wet from the pool, and they're like, I kind of got this wrong. This is not what I want to
Exactly.
do. So I'm kind of a mess right now. Um,
And this may actually, actualizing your magic may actually get you to realize that, you now need to go down a new path.
mhm.
And it's circular. That's the main thing that I want people to realize in regards to these 7 steps. It isn't just, okay, do this, check it off the list, do this, check it off the list, do this, and check it off the list. It's circular. You're going to be constantly going through them as long as you're doing transformational magic.
Right.
Um,
It's
uh,
almost like a spirograph if you think about it. You're
yeah,
going like
yeah.
this in that circle. I'm doing a
It
little
reminds me
visual.
of those pins that we had when we were kids, Jackie, where there would be like 9 different colors at the end and you would like color with it and it would make all these squiggly doodads and all these different
That's
colors.
Yeah, that's a spirograph.
Um, yeah. So there we
Yep.
have it.
There we have
And
it.
we're done. We're done with this episode of Curse Breakers.
Yeah.
I'm Storm Sestavani. She's
I'm
Jackie
Jackie Smith,
Smith.
and this is the book that we took it all from. Coventry Magic.
And in the next episode, I'm going to give you all some tea.
Oh yeah.
I found out in 2019 Jackie was cheating on me. We're going to talk about it in the next episode. Curse Breakers. And Jackie, what do they need to do in the meantime?
They need to keep it magic.
Also, like the
Oh yeah,
show.
that too.
If
Like the
if
show.
you don't, if
I just went back 7 years.
yeah,
I need a new ending.
like the show if you like us. Okay, if you don't like us, you don't have to watch. Okay, and make
Follow us
sure
on
that you
all the
visit our
socials.
sponsor. Follow us on all the socials, which will be listed below. I can't see them at the moment, so they're below. And of course, we'll see you soon.